This is the third edition, part C of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcast under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo. Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby angel Geronimo. And baby angel Geronimo is the most innocent witness, the most healthiest baby angel Geronimo. So baby angel Geronimo is witnessing what Vanessa Fells in today's Daily Express, the Daily Express otherwise is known as the racist Daily Express in our vocabulary because of the political role it is continuing to play, generally for racists, especially for the racist monarch in the Buckingham Palace. And Vanessa Fells herself is a notorious careerist, opportunist right-winger. So for her, it will appear to write in support of Ngozi Fulani is absolutely remarkable. And I'm not going to go into the further details of this one, but I just note that. And I don't believe a word that Vanessa Fells is trying to say about herself. Vanessa Fells is a right-winger, is a supporter of the racist status quo, and is not a campaigner against racism. However, we note that, and we then go on to talking about the Vice newspaper. The Vice is that name I gave it when the racists at the so-called East End News in 1981 picked up a notorious kind of agenda, if you like. And the agenda they tried to give personal expression to by finding an accountant called Val McKellar. And McKellar launched this page on the so-called Eastern News with his name solely to counter me. Because on the so-called Eastern News Collective, I had been having running battles since the beginning of the year 1981 that I joined it, with all the racists like Mike GMT and other racists, including the Morning Star zealot woman, Zelda Curtis, and assorted other racists, including two racist females from South Africa, that Mike GMT was particularly kind of close to. Val McKellar's Vice became the Voice newspaper with the support of then apartheid backing Barclays Bank and others. And Val McKellar was joined at the initial kind of launches by Alex Pascal, whom I've mentioned in previous editions, especially over the fact that Alex Pascal is still holding on to my exclusive speech, recording of the speech that he made at the 1981 all UK-wide seminar conference organized at my insistence by the then Commission for Racial Enslavement. Now, Alex Pascal owes that data back to me. And he is now in his 80s. Anyone else who kind of inherits this owes it to me and owes it to public and owes it to society. That speech I gave was the keynote speech about racism, against racism, and all the rest of it. Now, I have maintained that the Vice newspaper was the apartheid kind of ideologies, ethnicity expressed or ethnicity wearing expression. And it has festered for 40 years in that surrogate servile role. This week, or the last 7 days, the Vice newspaper, as I'm looking at it, its front page is the Christmas solidarity. Community come together to support each other in hard times. What an absolute load of lies. Of course, Val McCullough is no longer around, but that is the kind of lies that he would happily go along with. And there is nothing in the Vice News or the front page about Ngozi Fulani or about Suzanne Hassia. I'll look into the inside just to make sure that I haven't overlooked anything. And I start looking inside the Vice newspaper. And there is and it has got a heading, Black Heroes of 2022. I don't think there is anything in there about racism of the monarchy whatsoever. So the 2-page spread says that pressure grows on BBC over the threat to black shows. Now, this is the kind of description, black programs, which brings back memories of Alex Pascal, who was associated with the Black Londoners on the BBC Radio London. And I appeared on many of the editions and I spoke on live phone-in programs, etc. But it says, save our African and Caribbean BBC shows. So that's not black. The African and Caribbean, I mean, there is no similar embracing call for anything to do with the Asian side of the demography. And the Asian side of the demography has been distorted in itself by the Indian-based or Indian origin careerists that have grabbed hold of it. And they're based in Birmingham, and there is no real representation of the Bangladeshis or the Pakistanis or the other parts of the subcontinent's people. That in terms of the numbers are far bigger than the people from Caribbean and African origins. Or so the idea that our African and Caribbean BBC shows represents us, that is the African ones, let's say. Forget about the Asian ones, just for the technical description, is an absolute lie, because my main efforts with Alex Pascal, or my battles with Alex Pascal while he was sitting as presenter of the BBC Radio London, Black Londoners, was about content, was about direction. And Alex Pascal was as unwilling while doing the Black Londoners as he was quite capable of threatening to jump out of the window from that hotel where we were staying in 1981, where I was the keynote speaker. And overnight, before the day, the weekend, Saturday, of the plenary day, if you like, I was trying to prepare coach Robert Gavenda from South Africa, Alex Pascal, and a younger one called Mukhtar from Senegal. I was trying to coach them on how to speak and address at the plenary session. And the idea was to expose the racism of the BBC and to hold to account all the BBC executives that had managed to gather there during the weekend. But it was sabotaged by the stupidity, collective stupidity of most of the participants, the black ones, and the timidity and idiocy. As I've said in previous editions, Alex Pascal and I think Mukhtar threatened to jump out of the window because they literally said that I was putting them under too much heat by demanding that they prepare for a rigorous presentation of the case against racism in the BBC during the forthcoming Saturday session. And when I chaired the initial plenary day session, one of the speakers was Mukhtar. And he whispered into me before he stood up to spiel. What should he say? Despite the fact that I had spent the whole night trying to prepare him what to say. And I told Mukhtar briefly, I said in the universal traditional sense of the tutor and the coach, make them laugh. Never in my wildest nightmare had I thought that Mukhtar would share that advice with the audience, make them laugh. He told them, the first thing he told them was that the chair had told him to make them laugh. It made me do anything other than laugh. Now, this is the kind of quality of intellect. This is the quality of the intellect that is there, out there, in the black community. Now, how did the Europeans, almost the whole of Western Europe, took over the continents of Africa and Asia for significant parts of the last 2,000 years? How did these Europeans become the colonizers? I've been thinking about this, and it is a horrendous phenomenon. Not only are the Africans and Asian ones when you scrutinize them individually, lacking in the necessary quality, intellectual quality. But their colonizers, too, are stupid. I mean, you look at the quality of the members of parliament on show now, whatever kind of party they come from. You look at the quality of the ministers, and you cannot say that any of them is exceptionally intelligent, so intelligent as to warrant they are being expected to be in charge of the political lives of the entire big countries that they colonized. And you can do the analysis about the qualities possessed by Robert Clive of the East India Company and the quality of Mir Zafar Ali Khan and all the other colluders. And there is really no serious moral, intellectual difference between them. So it's a query that I'm going to pursue. What made them colonize these people, and what made the colonized be colonized and stay colonized for nearly 200 years in the case of the subcontinent? Okay, so we should be doing that. Now, this one, the European 30 years of Eric, apparently it's a celebration by Miranda Soya, Nigel Ward Barton, Alistair Campbell, and Jason Solomons, celebrating the most European footballer ever. Now, one had a thing called European footballer featured as a factor anywhere. But here they are celebrating this, which actually shows that even these anti-Brexiteers lack the necessary intellect. Because the footballers did not make the difference in giving the Brexiteers the thin electoral kind of majority of the referendum. In June 2016, it's the others, liars in the media, and crooks like Alistair Campbell. In his years as Tony Blair's biggest lying thug, Campbell confected so many lies, and the so-called media didn't actually hold him to account. Alistair Campbell, also justified war crimes, and the media not only didn't hold him to account then, the media has failed or chosen not to hold him to account since. So Campbell is not really an ideal source of moral estimation as to what Eric Clapton did for the European project. Because the role that Tony Blair played in inflicting genocide of Afghans and Iraqis in collusion with George W. Bush, that was supported by Alistair Campbell, and that was not opposed by Europe, so-called. The European Union didn't oppose it. So there is a lot of questions about the so-called anti-Brexiteers and the so-called European project supporters who have discredited the idea of the European Union by the massive corruption, criminality, warmongering, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to go off the camera for, I think, 2 minutes. So the continuation from the part B of the analysis of the racist Fleet Street attacking Harry for pointing out that in the palace, the British monarchy palace, by which generally the reference is to Buckingham Palace, but precisely it is a reference to the monarchy. The concept of hierarchy. Now, it is not a mystery that Harry is breaking. It is a truth known for the 70 years of Brenda's stay as the monarch, that she has been a supporter of racists. She has been a supporter of mass murders launched in the name of Britain. She never, ever regretted that, and she never considered any of that as her annus horribilis. So those who are attacking Harry are completely wrong, because Harry is not being unique in that particular point. The facts are on his side. The evidence is on his side. All right. So now the intellectual abilities on the part of the so-called ethnicity-linked so-called media is embarrassingly limited. Well, I'm talking about the ones that I can cite in the UK. Too many too many of these so-called talk shows are presented by totally ignorant individuals, but they have guests who are equally ignorant, and they have no manners. They have no sense of decorum in terms of addressing the evidence and looking at the evidence. For example, when I was on one of these programs presented by Reza Ahmad Chaudhry Faisal, or Faisal Ahmad Chaudhry Reza, or Reza Ahmad Chaudhry Faisal, alias Shuaib, on a thing which is no longer active. Thing was called Channel I Europe. I began appearing on the Channel I Europe starting on the 2nd of October 2011 out of generosity, out of kindness, because prior to that, I had suffered for strictly evidence gathering purposes some of the contents of the broadcasts done by the same outlet and fronted by Shuaib. And I had found them completely, absolutely irrelevant to the community, ignorant to the point of ridicule. And I made my opinion plain to Shoaib in a number of conversations. So I think he decided that the best way to answer my criticism was to give me a spot or two or maybe more. And in good faith, I wanted to give it a try. So when I appeared on one of the programs that Shoaib was presenting, a man called and he made allegations saying that I had cats. Can you believe that? Among other things. And I had caused him problems. And I'm giving absolutely verifiable evidence here. Of course, I've had cats. But that is not an offense, never was, never will be. What he was angry about was that he totally mistakenly and wrongly thought that I had caused his loss of his flat. But I hadn't. I had tried to help him keep this. And everyone who knows my work knows that when I take on a case, it is not lightly taken. And whenever I fight for somebody, on the record, if anyone says otherwise, they have to give that chapter and verse. But I have fought campaigns for other people's housing, stopping somebody being deported, like Abdul Salik. That nobody else has been able to do. So this man said that he had taken money from a husband and wife, Indian husband and wife, that he allowed to stay in his flat. Now that was not for him to sublet or to allow some couple to live in. That was a single flat for him. Okay? Although he had children and wives or ex-wives separately, that flat was not It was a housing association kind of flat for him. I never knew him until January 2013. But immediately after he met me, he began complaining about those two Indians. And he said that the Indians had left his flat and stolen his stuff, none of which I could verify or examine whatsoever. But then I found out that there was a letter he then received from the housing association, which contained allegations that he had sublet or let these people use his flat. And what was shocking, and I didn't know, I had no way of knowing, I didn't know this man until January 2013. He received any thousands of pounds from these two Indians. I mean, I cannot say even to this day, this is now 7 years, 8 years later, I couldn't say how much money he had received from them or how much money they paid him. How did this happen? Because he let these people stay in the flat that was meant for him without telling the housing association, which is a very significant legal obligation. He should have told the housing association. More importantly, he should have got their permission to do that. However, he did none of those things. And I'm only giving an legal narrative analysis in order to explain his very untrue phone call that he made to the program I was appearing on, presented by Shoaib. And those people paid him anything between, I would say, contextually, circumstantially, 20 to 40,000 pounds or more over several years. I don't know how long. And what were they doing? They were staying there, and both of them were professional individuals working in professional capacities in London. So they were well paid as well there from their own work. What was he doing? He was flying to Bangladesh and back. Now, during the whole of that period that this man and his wife or his partner stayed in his flat, this man made at least 4 to 5 round trips to Bangladesh, that is Sylhet. And he managed to marry. Now, this man was in his 50s, if my memory serves, and he married a woman of 20s, in her 20s. But he had already been married, and he had, according to Abdus Salik, who knew this man, he had anything between 12 to 15 children already. Now, this young woman that he married in the period that he let those people stay in his flat while he was going, he said to me that he never, since he left Sylhet and came to the UK, he had never gone back to Sylhet until this time when he was able to get the money from these two people and go to Sylhet. And as part of his trips, he got married to this young woman who was younger than half his age. And then he had a child, I think. So his story was to me not about the facts that they took his money or took his belongings or whatever. He was concerned to get this woman, young woman, over to the UK through the immigration. Remember, it was the time, 2013, it was the time when Theresa May was still Home Secretary. Now, I had some years previously contact with Theresa May and her staff in the Home Office. And my experience showed to me, specifically that experience, that Theresa May was, compared to other ministers, reasonable. That is what I formed the opinion based on my experience on that particular occasion. It cannot be extrapolated, of course, but that's what I told him. I said to this man that as the Home Secretary was a reasonable person, it was quite possible that if he provided all the evidence and he gave the information that would be necessary to fight for his young wife to be brought over, I would have a go. I'd try my best. That's what I said, and I still remember saying that. But before any of this could happen, he began receiving court communications, demands about the abuse, illegal use of his flat from the housing association. And I wasn't in contact with him. I couldn't. But I did write to the housing association based on his statements, not on the evidence, but on his statements. And some of those contained allegations against them based on his statements to me. Now, when he made the phone call to the television channel, he accused me of having caused him to lose his flat. How could I do that? The most I did was to stand up for him, both to the Housing Association and also to the court. I sent letters. All the letters that I have sent for other people to any court or tribunal have been successful over decades. Now, this kind of allegation could only have been made by somebody who had no idea what they were talking about. He neither knew the law, he neither knew the morality or ethics or anything. All he wanted to do was to have a go at me for no reason. He thought that I was responsible for him losing the flat that he actually lost. Now, the fact that he didn't go to jail is thanks to me, because I made a lengthy case for him, making all kinds of arguments that he didn't understand what he did and he should not be punished. And here he was making an allegation on a live television program. And Shoaib, instead of asking me what it was about and asking the man to stop, because Shoaib should have known better. There is no campaigner like me. There is nobody who opposes liars and crooks like I do. And there was Shoaib sitting flat on his back and letting this man make a typically ignorant list of allegations that had nothing to do with him. One of the witnesses to his independent praising of me before I lost contact with him is a man called Sundar Mia, who is a Labour Party member in Shadwell. And he said that this man spoke to him about me and praised me. And here he was making this completely, absolutely stupid allegation, and Shoaib allowed this to happen. So I am putting this on the record again. The Shoaib owes a very serious apology to me for this. And Shoaib must apologize to me without making me do anything extra for allowing this absolutely untruthful, defamatory, criminally aggravating, insulting item to go on air. Shoaib has done other things which I shall not be including in this particular statement, but I can assure anyone watching this that that item or Shoaib are not alone. The entirety of the ethnicity linked circuits stuffed full of irresponsible, inaccurate, misleading, false, untrue, untruthful contents. For example, the one that is most often cited as the most so-called popular, that is watched by the largest number of Bangladeshis, channel, called Channel S, which I call Channel Slave. It is also notoriously claimed that it was founded by Jalil, Mahi Ferdaus Jalil, which I said earlier is a name he stole from somebody else. Ferdaus is not a name that is common, even in most of Bangladesh, let alone insular. But he stole somebody else's name. Now, Jalil then, when the COVID set in, COVID-19 set in, shopkeepers in Brick Lane or in parts of Tower Hamlets were charging customers too much for the items that they had sold before at much lower prices. And then Jalil actually said that these shopkeepers who were charging too much were the illegitimate children of Hindus. How did he kind of connect the two? I mean, anyone being a Hindu is being, accused of being a naturally born fraudster and cheat. That is not true. And the fact that Jalil said that, it leaves no need to explain just how stupid, how unfit Jalil is. And then what happened? Legitimately, a number of people started a campaign demanding that Jalil be held to account. And Jalil then posted a groveling apology to all the Hindus. Now, why would he do the insult in the first place? Why would he choose the kind of analogy that being Hindu was the one that was responsible for people being charged too much money? Anyway, these shopkeepers were not children of Hindus or whatever, not in the previous few generations anyway. So that is an example of Jalil's complete unfitness and irresponsibility. So one of the other channels, one of the rival channels, let's say, outlet, in fact, this individual just about managed to get away, got acquitted. He was accused by Jalil of having seriously beaten him up in 2011. And this individual just about got away. He didn't get convicted, but if he did get convicted, if he had been convicted, like the one that has been convicted, the one that has been convicted allegedly has been jailed for 32 years or 30 years or something like that. So this other individual just about managed to get acquitted, escape being found guilty of deadly attack on Jalil. Now, Shoaib asked me on the telephone about this individual, as if Shoaib didn't know the difference between me and this individual. And Shoaib then tried to say that he stopped this individual from going any further about me. What was Shoaib insinuating? So I'm asking Shoaib to confirm in writing to me what exactly was insinuating about this individual. And for legal reasons, I'm not naming this individual. Does not mean that I cannot name him. I can. But I'm protecting Shoaib here by not naming this individual. But suffice to say that these are the types of people that are broadcasters, journalists, so-called, opinion formers in the name of the UK Bangladeshis, let's say. They are not fit. They are not fit in any way whatsoever. And the reason why I'm saying that is because they've caused the various issues that the Tower Hamlets Council has been wrongly backing at the expense of the community. Those have been lost because of the stupidity, ignorance, dishonesty on the part of these individual broadcasters, so-called journalists, ethnicity linked. The latest example is, of course, the defeat by the community to the Plopla Haque and the Tower Hamlets kind of alliance of criminality, attacking the Chris Street Market community kind of aspect of the shops. I appeared on several editions of a program called Campaigning for Chris Street Market. And every time I said that we cannot stop this attack by just appearing on television channels. We have to do street campaigns. And every time I got them to agree to go to City Hall and other places, Town Hall, whatever. Somehow, these individuals who appeared on program quite happily became part and parcel of the lying diversion so that they won't have to go to demonstrations. I can give names and chapter and verse and everything. But I'm not doing that I'm not doing that out of generosity. Not because I cannot name them, I can name them. But I'm not doing that out of generosity. But I'm highlighting the principle that anyone who says that there are ethnicity-linked outlets like Channel Slave or other ones are doing any genuine democratic service for the community is lying, because they're not. The other side is that like the mental slaves in the context of racist Britain, for example, in the previous edition, I said about the expressions of personal grief, yes, by many Muslims at the passing of Brenda, otherwise known as Elizabeth II, I said, what the fuck have Muslim to do with that? And the reason I use that profanity is because of their profane behavior. Brenda was never known as a friend of Muslims, let alone related to Muslim individuals like the children of migrants or illegal migrants themselves. So these individuals who express, on their Facebook accounts, they put notes saying that they are really grief-stricken. These very individuals or their comparables, their ilks, have remained silent at the murder by Bangladeshis of the Bangladeshi boy Ajmal Ahmad. I'm sorry, it's not Hussain, it's Ajmal Ahmad. Ajmal Ahmad, the pupil who attended the Langdon Park School in Poplar, was murdered by other Bangladeshis. And these individuals who have put bogus condolences about themselves and mourning the loss of Brenda have remained silent for, well, that happened in 2013 as well, didn't it? So for 7-8 years, calendar years, these people, these so-called Bangladeshi leaders, have stayed silent about Ajmal Ahmad. And they would have stayed silent, they would have stayed absolutely silent about Altaf Ali as well. If I hadn't done the campaign in 1978, thus making layers and layers of creeps to feel jealous and then join part of the campaign, and then now they're even writing books, bogus. They can't even read the books they have written, apparently. One of the culprits, one of the criminals, helping them write these bogus phantom books is Alok Sharma, an Indian from West Bengal. Hey, Alok, you are the criminal who disgraced the Haque Asian Association. You liar. You shouldn't have ghost written the book about Altaf Ali and the campaign, giving the name as author of a man who cannot even read the one page, you moron. Alok Biswas. I'm naming Alok Biswas, the liar. And there are so many others. There are so many others fictitious. There is another one with not doing exactly as Alok Biswas has done, but Deepak Bose, who became a Christian. Deepak Bose came here from West Bengal as a Bengali Hindu, and he has now become a padri. And some others. And I don't even want to begin talking about Malasen. Maladondi. Maladondi was part of a gang of crooks, together with Freak Dondi, her then husband, and Darkas Dirty How, and other malcontents. They arrived in Tower Hamlets secretly. Pelham building, not far from the Montefiore Center. And these criminals then created a fantasy that they were rescuing millions of homeless Bangladeshis in Tower Hamlets from the plight of homelessness. They fucking did not. They only set up a few squats. That's it. That never solved the problem of housing crisis. And they didn't do it. And then the BBC had the audacity, the BBC liars had the audacity to accept the lies of Freak Dondi and do the king of ghettos, creating a complete criminal into the figure of a hero, all by rescuing the Bangladeshis. How the fuck? The same hero didn't give a shit about white people in East London suffering homelessness, suffering abject negligence by the council, abject discrimination by the GLC and all the rest of it. And there they are making this criminal into a hero for the Bangladeshis. There is no truth in it. And none of these so-called television or media outlets, at the expense of the Bangladeshi community, in the name of the Bangladeshi community, none of them, presenters, whatever, they don't even know the facts. They weren't here. Most of them, including Shoaib, only arrived in the United Kingdom under very dubious migration plans in the late 1980s or early 1990s. The action around Al-Tabali had happened in the 70s, more than 10 years before these ones even physically arrived. One of the ones that I prevented from being deported by the conservatives, well, he was being deported. He was under deportation program while Labour was in government. But his deportation program moved to the conservatives when the conservatives took over power after James Callaghan yielded defeat to Margaret Thatcher. So this one that I saved from being deported, before he died, published on his Facebook a completely criminal series of lies about who helped him. Every single item was a lie. Every single item that exists in his name on the Facebook or whatever is a pack of lies by him. And anyone who knows him or knew him or in any way has access to his Facebook thing must remove those criminalities and untruths and lies. Because he paid homage, he paid tributes to the very people who wanted him deported. And he never mentioned a single one of the campaigners, let alone me. I am the main person who mobilized the campaign and stopped his deportation within 24 hours. Full stop. I never needed him. I still don't need him to mention me. I don't need that. I never have needed that. But the fact that he was so ungrateful to the people he went crying to for begging for their signatures to bogus letters, praising him and sending the letters of endorsement to the Home Office, making false statements saying that he's a very important member of the community. He wasn't. Many of the people who came to me for advice as to whether to support him sought my advice, and I said, "What do you think?" And they said, without any difference between them, that he is a liar and he will never acknowledge our help, which is exactly what has happened. Not only did he not mention my work, which is unique, and if anyone wants to challenge me, we shall go to the records obtainable from the Home Office. Go and check them. He then called one of the programs that I was on. Again, Shuaib was presenting it. And he said it pointedly, this liar, this complete shaitan. He said that the community, Brick Lane community, the Bangladeshis, were defended by অশিক্ষিত মানুষ। অশিক্ষিত মানুষে Brick Lane defend করছেন। Now, can you believe that? অশিক্ষিত মানুষ, by definition, cannot do that. They don't know how to organize campaigns, what to say about a campaign, who to campaign against, and where to campaign, and how long to campaign, and what evidence to cite, etc., etc., etc. By definition, that is the curse, the prison of curse in which অশিক্ষিত মানুষ are held captive for the whole of their অশিক্ষিত life. And here was the liar Abdul Salik making that claim. Now, to any শিক্ষিত মানুষ, Shuaib says he has done a degree in Bangladesh before coming to the UK. He should have stopped Abdul Salik right there to say to him, Salik bhai বা whatever, আপনি এখান কিতা কইন? But he didn't. Now, I stayed silent on that one because if I made any response to Abdul Salik, it would affect other people that are not to be blamed for his stupidity. It would affect his family. And I didn't want to make them feel unhappy or feel embarrassed or feel ashamed of Abdul Salik. That is the reason why I didn't answer, but I'm answering now. Anyone who wants to take up can challenge me on the facts, and I shall deal with that. But essentially, they must not do that. They must apologize to the community. And to me, as far as I'm concerned, they must return all the photographs, all the videos that Abdul Salik took of me without my permission after inviting me to attend his events that I had never consented to be filmed at or photographed at by him. He has got literally hundreds of videos, tapes, and photographs of me. Anyone who has access to Abdul Salik's, let's say, legacy must return in full everything they have got that shows me, features me. Because I never gave a single word of permission to them holding on to this, abusing them without my consent and my advance, clear, express consent. So we shall be putting this particular edition at 1 hour, 7 minutes, I think, to an end. This is part C of the Khoodeelaar television channel on Tuesday, the 6th of December, 2022. We shall update on all other issues